April the 7th, 2025 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. The Burnsville Parks and Natural Resources Commission meetings are currently conducted in person, but members of the public may attend either in person, online, or via Zoom by calling in. Additional instructions on how to participate are posted online at www.burnsvillemn.gov in the Public Meetings Center. As usual, tonight's meeting is also available for viewing on BCTV and on the city's website. If you are unable to participate this evening and would like to submit a public testimony, I encourage you to email your comments to the city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. At this time, I would like to turn the floor over to Commissioner Woolman and allow her to chair the meeting for the rest of this evening.
Thank you, Chair Hansel. Now on to tonight's agenda. Our first agenda item tonight is the adoption of the Natural Resources Commission meeting. Oh my gosh, Shannon. Maybe I should have just let you do the rest of it. The first item tonight is the adoption of the agenda. Do any members of the commission have any changes to tonight's agenda? Oop. Staff, do you have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Nothing from staff.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the adoption of tonight's agenda?
I so move.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And the motion carries. Our second item tonight is approval of the minutes. We are looking at the approval for the January 6th, 2025 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, are there any changes? Staff, do you have any changes to the meeting minutes?
Nothing from staff.
Perfect. May I have a motion for the approval of tonight's minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And the motion carries. At this time, we're gonna see if there's any members of the public on Zoom who wish to speak for citizen comments. Is there anybody on Zoom?
Check that. Those four have signed in to speak tonight.
Perfect, thank you. I'll give you a moment before we see who's on that Zoom call.
Madam Chair, there's nobody on Zoom.
Perfect, thank you. And so now we have 4 people who have signed up to speak tonight. Please remember that this is a hearing only. We are not going to provide feedback, nor are we voting on anything as far as I'm aware. So the first person we have signed up to speak is Laura Schmidt. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Laura Meyer-Schmitz. I live in North River Hills, and I want to speak briefly about the Sioux Trail Elementary School property and the Tennessee Park property specifically. With MI Homes terminating their purchase agreement for the Sioux Trail property, we now have a rare opportunity to pause and reassess what's possible for this space. For years, the city has been able to point to this area and say, there's a park, when in reality, it's been the school's playground meeting that need. Now, with the future of the property once again uncertain and the district still hoping to sell, we need to acknowledge a hard truth. Given that Tennessee Park actually has no real amenities or structures of any kind, there is no dedicated city park serving this neighborhood. I urge the city to act now to develop a real plan for functional, accessible park space in a portion of this site. Failing to do so would be yet another blow to a part of Burnsville that has already taken on more than its fair share of tough community losses. I hope you'll take a look at that as an option in the future and consider the needs of that community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Ed Sturm. Hi, welcome. And did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah, you got it right.
Perfect, thank you.
Betsy's going to hand out a couple items as we get going here.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak to you again as a follow-up to the December 2nd PNRC meeting. My name is Ed Sturm. I'm a 17-year resident of Burnsville on Frontier Lane. I'm the Lake Association President for Alamagnet Lake. I'm also a member of Alamagnet Eco Advocates. I'm also a natural resources volunteer and a volunteer for Burnsville through the Mobile Volunteer Network. I want to reiterate that the Lake Association and Alamagnet Eco Advocates have no objection to pickleball. Our objection is only to the proposed pickleball location at Alamagnet Park. On December 2nd, we came before the committee and expressed concerns about the proposed pickleball complex at Alamagnet Park. A lot has happened since then. Our group, Alamagnet Eco Advocates, has submitted 64 Freedom of Information requests, otherwise known as FOIAs. We had meetings with city staff. We attended every city council meeting and work session since then. There we presented factual arguments and our concerns to the council with data showing the negative impacts this proposed project would have, not only on the environment and the habitat for animals and birds, but also to the humans that enjoy the park and the lake. As you're aware, the council will make their decision regarding this on April 15th. We hope by sharing more information with you tonight, you will share our belief that there is a more prudent choice, both environmentally and fiscally, for pickleball in Burnsville. Our concerns with the proposed pickleball courts and related parking are numerous. These concerns have been presented at length at council, as can be seen on council video recordings on the Burnsville website. We also provided council with various handouts to further develop the topics. Tonight, in the interest of time, I will briefly summarize our main concerns. Our first concern is regarding the additional runoff the proposed pickleball courts and related parking will do to degrade Alamagnet Lake water quality. As you may know, the lake has been on the impaired waters list since 2001. The pumps at the Apple Valley end of the lake cannot keep up with significant rainfall events, and when we have significant rainfall events, the lake level rapidly rises above the ordinary high water mark. More hard surface around the lake area will accelerate this rising of the lake level above the ordinary high water mark. This acceleration of the high water mark accelerates erosion of soil and organic matter into the lake, increasing the nutrient load both in the bottom of the lake and in the water column, making Alamagnet Lake an even more fertile environment for the growth of invasive plants and algae. The growth of the algae can be seen in one of the photos that Betsy distributed, easily seen as basically what looks like pea soup, just without the ham. What the picture does not illustrate is what happens when the algae proceeds to its next stage beyond green, which is turning blue-green, which is the point at which it becomes toxic to both humans and animals. City staff have yet to present a plan or the estimated cost to eliminate the runoff from the proposed pickleball courts and parking into the lake. Our second concern is the pickleball courts and related parking will worsen the heat island impact on Alamagnet Lake. Burnsville is already significantly above the metro average for heat island impact. Think global warming. Runoff from the proposed courts and parking have superheated water that is created by the sun baking the hardscape. That water is warmer than the water in the lake, causing the lake temperature to rise, causing further growth of algae and invasive plants. This problem is going to be made worse because additional parking is claimed to be needed at Alamagnet Park. City staff presented a slide at the December PNRC meeting justifying the need for additional parking as, and I quote, "In 2024, there were 42 days from June 1 to September 30 requiring overflow parking." When I first saw this slide, I found this need for additional parking hard to believe, as we regularly walk the park as do our neighbors. We know when baseball is in play at Alamagnet as we hear the ding of the bats. We hear the voices of the announcers, and we see the lighting at night. In February, I submitted a FOIA requesting support for the 42-day conclusion by city staff. In response, I received a spreadsheet with many tabs that unfortunately did not support the 42-day conclusion regarding the need for parking. In March, I submitted a second FOIA asking for any additional support for the need for additional parking at Alamagnet Park, such as photos of parking usage, car counts, etc. City staff responded to the second FOIA. They had no additional support for the 42-day conclusion. Alamagnet Eco Advocates subsequently submitted another FOIA requesting copies of emails between Burnsville City staff regarding the proposed courts and related parking. Those emails indicated that the need for additional parking is substantially less than the 42 days presented to the PNRC in December. City staff appear determined to add parking at Alamagnet Park despite the environmental concerns and the lack of data to support the need for the parking. Somehow I think the city has better things to spend their money on than unnecessary parking lots. Our third concern is the environmental problems associated with light and sound pollution. Light pollution will negatively impact migrating birds, along with mating animals and birds. Sound pollution will also negatively impact birds and animals. Sound pollution will negatively impact humans in or near the park. The sound from pickleball play is comparable to the backup signal on a gravel truck. The park sits in the Echo Valley portion of Burnsville. This subdivision was quite appropriately chosen since the sound echoes between the park and the increase in elevation up to Echo Park Elementary School on County Road 11. Park users at the northern edge of the park may think they are having private conversations on the trails in the woods, but they might be surprised to find out that those of us that live on Frontier Lane and the people on the lake can hear their entire conversation. The proposed pickleball courts would be on this same northern edge of the park. If the pickleball courts end up being as popular as the city believes, that backup beeper noise will be heard from the moment that pickleball play starts in the morning until after dark on all 7 days per week. In an attempt to address concerns about noise pollution, the city paid an outside consultant to perform a, quote, sound study, end quote. We received the results of this study through a FOIA request. The study could better be described as a compendium of information from various sources. The study did not simulate actual sound travel from the proposed pickleball site through the park and through Echo Valley. This study, unfortunately, is of little to no value. It's easy to look at these concerns about our natural resources and pass all this off as only incremental damage to an already damaged environment, to the animals and the humans in and around Alamagnet Park. Unfortunately, that was the same view for years that caused the damage to Alamagnet Lake and Park that the city and its citizens are stuck dealing with today. So the question is whether that legacy of bad decision-making will continue by proceeding with the proposed pickleball courts and related parking, or whether the city moves forward by doing the right thing for the environment and the humans. In closing, I want to thank each of you for your time and effort being a commissioner. Going forward, I encourage each of you to use your position as a commissioner to ask tough questions and hold city staff accountable to answering your questions with accurate data. This may not be easy, as it may require using your wisdom to discern when the conclusions being provided to you are supported by data and when those conclusions are not supported by data. If something does not seem right to you, push harder for the truth. The natural resources and humans in Burnsville need all of us to do that. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And next up is Betsy Sturm. Welcome, Betsy.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And first, I'd like to say, I really hope you get your playground, okay? Yay! Yay, everybody hopes for good things for parks and natural resources. I want to remind everyone here that our group, the Alley Magnet Eco Advocates, we are not anti-pickleball, okay? We are anti-location. In addition, the media has portrayed our group as a group of lake homeowners, when in fact our group is a group of people from both Burnsville and Apple Valley who live on and off the lake, around Alley Magnet Park and Lake, and care very much about the environment. We even have people in our group that play pickleball. In order to understand more about the community's feelings regarding this proposed pickleball complex, the Alley Magnet Eco Advocates went to the street and took the issue about Alley Magnet to the community through our petitioning. 9 members of our group went door-to-door petitioning, focusing on the immediate neighborhoods around Alley Magnet Park and Lake. We engaged in conversation and discussion with over hundreds of citizens. We also did pop-up petitioning at businesses, local places of worship, and at the Alley Magnet Dog Park. In addition, we posted signs throughout the community and have the petition online at change.org. I've included a copy of the petition in your packet. In our door-to-door and pop-up petitioning, we found many concerns. Most evident in these concerns was people did not know about this project. A $1.3 million project, and the majority of citizens were unaware of it. Many were shocked that Alley Magnet Park would be selected for this. The negative impact on the animals, the birds, the busyness of the park already, and concerns for the lake and the wetlands. A resident on White Rock said there is already so much traffic going in and out of this park. One on Park Street said he was teaching his son to play pickleball, but when offered a different location like Cliff Fen that is industrial, or the empty mall, he thought, boy, those are better locations, and signed. One person who said they played pickleball, and we met many, said the location should be at Alley Magnet Park, and this was the only person we found with that opinion. Through petitioning, we not only provided the community with information, but found many citizens went on and were motivated to engage the city itself. People went further than just signing the petition. For instance, a couple that I met on 11th Street, located immediately across County 11 from the actual site that will be the most impacted by the noise, were so concerned that they attended a city council meeting the very next night. When we had a pop-up petition at Alley Magnet Park, a concerned resident from Williamsburg Circle or Curve not only signed the petition, but that very day sent an email telling council members, please vote no. Another person at the dog park passed our table and said he'd have to think about it. But on his way out, he came back to our table and signed and said, quote, I realized I wouldn't hear the birds, unquote. 2 of our members live in Apple Valley and use the park almost daily. They petitioned throughout their neighborhood and said one thing that struck them the most, again, was how few people in Apple Valley knew about this project. With a shared lake and park, what kind of engagement did Burnsville have with Apple Valley about this project that would impact a shared natural resource? That same couple knocked on the door of former Burnsville Planning Commissioner Ram Singh, who said to use his name and tell the city he feels pickleball should not be at Alley Magnet Park. These are just a handful of experiences that our group had. We felt that when people stopped and listened to our concerns, which many did, 95% signed our petition. As of today, our total numbers in petitioning are 325 hand-signed and 530 online signatures, a total of 855. Of those, at least 270 are Burnsville residents and 96 are Apple Valley residents. The majority of the remaining signees are from all different parts of the South Metro. The Alley Magnet Eco Advocates will present to the City Council with the final petition numbers next week when they make their decision on April 15th. I'm sharing a copy of the petition with you so you can see our group's main concerns about pickleball at Alley Magnet. I will be providing the City of Burnsville a copy of a complete map of people who have signed within the city limits of Burnsville, and you will find when you see this, it is spread. It is not just lake homeowners. It is beyond. It is every corner of Burnsville. I'd like to end with one more statement. Ed mentioned that our group has presented at every council meeting. Our members enjoy Alley Magnet in many different ways. One member's presentation on March 5th, which I hope you will take time after this meeting to go and look online at March 5th's meeting, spoke such an impactful presentation that a council member was actually moved to say immediately after her presentation that they would vote no to pickleball at Alley Magnet. Lauren spoke of her adult son, Max, who has severe autism. They use the park every day as a way to relax. Max finds calm in the park. Lauren ended her presentation by saying, quote, "A pickleball complex in Alley Magnet will not only force the animals and birds from the park, but it will force people like Max and myself too." Unquote. I find it ironic and sad that as citizens and taxpayers, we are here having to fight for a natural resource because the city has so carelessly selected the edge of a lake for a pickleball complex. I hope you as commissioners who have influence and power will fight for us, knowing that your role can impact many people's lives, including Max's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Andrea Grazzini. Hi, Andrea, welcome.
Hello. It is really tempting just to listen to the Girl Scouts and hear what they have to say about it. Good. I was hoping so. I was at the last commissioners meeting when we had an opportunity to speak, so it's kind of nice to be able to come back and do a bit of a full circle and maybe connect some dots from when we talked then. I first of all really want to talk about the idea of engagement, and I want to be clear that we're not, like as my colleague said, we're not against pickleball. Many of us play pickleball. We like pickleball. We think there probably does need to be more pickleball in Burnsville. It's not that. And we also see ourselves as stakeholders and partners with the city, and that's really sincere and really serious. It would almost be impossible to imagine that we were coming to every single solitary council meeting if we didn't really care about our city. It's not just about Alley Magnet, it's about us being contributing citizens to a solution that we think is desperately needed, and that is moving pickleball plans from Alley Magnet. It's really important to us. And I also want to tell you a little bit about our process. I may have shared a little bit of this, but I want to be clear. We didn't immediately go to the city council and complain. We first went to staff a number of times. We spoke with staff one-on-one, we spoke with staff on emails, we reached out to them and they reached out to us. Anytime there was an opportunity, we took it up to speak with them. When they invited us, we went. Even when they didn't invite us, if it was a public event that we could be present at, we made sure that we were there and showed our commitment as well. So we started with staff, but to be honest, and I think that's reflected a little bit in some of the things that Ed spoke to, we did find that staff was super amenable to what we thought were pretty critical issues. We heard I want you to be really clear, we like the staff. The staff is very friendly. They are very sweet, they're kind, they're not jerks at all. And I don't know that anybody would imagine they were, but I just want to be clear that they have treated us in terms of their demeanors respectfully. I'm not sure that I would agree in terms of the information that they provided us. There has been a number of pretty glaring omissions, if not manipulations of information. I'll get to those. In the meantime, to make sure we weren't the ones that were being jerks, quote unquote, we educated ourselves. To Ed's point, a lot of that came out of not only one-on-one discussions, but when we felt we were getting stuck on things that just kind of weren't making sense, we developed FOIAs. We asked for information, so we weren't leaping to conclusions. That can happen with human beings, especially people that really care, as we do. So we wanted to be sure we were always dealing in facts. So that was the reason we went to get FOIAs. So we were dealing and educating ourselves, not just pretending like we were experts on Alamagnet or natural resources, which none of us are. But we're a lot smarter about it, I will say, after having gone through this. We only began speaking, in fact, you were the first leadership group that we spoke to. It was a good training ground. I appreciate that you allowed us to do that. And then from there, we began speaking to the council. And again, our whole mission has been to educate ourselves and to provide education that we weren't sure leaders were getting. So that's what tonight is about as well. I want to start out with, when I last spoke with you, I talked about challenges with the reports that Alamagnet's water quality was improving, and I emphatically said that's not true. And I emphatically say that again, and I have research documented to prove it. This really came to light in December at one of the meetings that the city invited us to after we began expressing our concerns. They invited us to a water quality meeting at Alamagnet, and it was titled "The History of Water Quality at Alamagnet." It was a 20-year history. That's not history of Alamagnet by any stretch of the imagination. What it is that the history of the staff who presented the presentation. So they were kind of working with their own window of understanding, but there's tons of data. The state's got data, Metro Council's got data, really good data on water quality for all lakes. So that was frustration to begin with, because it didn't include the historical data, which belies the fact that Alamagnet is somehow better than it was. It's no better now, as I said before, than it was in the 1990s and going back further. So I want to be really clear on that. In spite of having said that to you, not that it was your responsibility to, spread the word, but also to staff, we were continually told, well, yes, it has, well, yes, it has. So at this meeting, they presented graphs. What they did was they made a comparative graph with Keller Lake, because Keller Lake and Alamagnet have both had alum treatments, which are for treating the water clarity. In short, the Keller Lake graphs were a mess. They were a mess. They were missing one whole year of data. It so happens that that year, the water clarity was the best it had been in the history. And it was by 1 meter, I believe, or something insane. I will send you guys the data on this, because I know you can't just trust what I'm saying. So one date, 2008, they're totally missing it. I'm not sure how that happens, but the graph didn't show that. So if you just glanced at the graph, and we all did, we looked at it a number of times and totally thought, well, it's okay, it's interesting, until I noticed that even looking at the graph, we didn't notice that. So when you looked at the graph and you heard the staff speak, you thought, well, okay, they've got a point here. Well, they don't, because they failed to put on the best data that would have made their data not look so good. Same case, there's other factors. I won't get into all those, but I will. They are provided in the handout that you have. Same situation at Alamagnet. Basically the biggest issue was they provided truncated data. They provided this, again, the 20 years worth of data that if you just clip it at that, looks okay. It does look like we're improving. But if you go back 10 years even, you start to see that the patterns are not so great. And then you go back 20 years, which is a little bit more accurate if you're talking about history. There's no difference. And that you can see that on the graph on the flyer, or the handout rather. They also had mentioned that one of our contractors at the city, who does a lot of lake reports, his data, I asked them at one of the meetings that they invited us to, I said, well, why does his data look like what I'm seeing, but your data looks so good? What's the difference here? And they believed that it was probably because he was taking
data measurements of water quality and water clarity in October and maybe earlier in the spring, which is no, it's not accurate. It doesn't reflect an accurate representation because of the changing of the temperature of the water. And just the end of the season, I suppose. They could explain that better. But they're like, you should never use October for sure. You must have been using October. Well, it turns out he wasn't using October. In spite of them having said that to us, there's been 2 Star Tribune articles in which the city staff has said that, one of them, granted, it was in 2012, when the Natural Resources Director said Alamagnet is improving, let me see if I can find the quote, it is on the flyer, basically implying that Alamagnet was doing remarkably well, better than they'd seen, they couldn't believe it. Turns out it wasn't, it had 1 good year, and that statement from a person who's talking about science was 1 data point. Not a history, not a look or an analysis of an accurate analysis. It was 1 year. Same exact thing happened in December of this year. You can look up an article about Alamagnet and pickleball, and you'll see that the communications person for Alamagnet, or for the city, said, quoted a 1 day of clarity for Alamagnet, and the date was October 6th. And based on October 6th, the month we're not supposed to use, as I was admonished by the staff, the communications director then leapt to the conclusion, or so it appeared in his quotes, that Alamagnet was well on its way to meeting its phosphorus goals. I think you guys know, maybe you don't, it takes 10 years, not only of phosphorus, it takes two factors, 10 years, consecutive years of improvement. Not 1 day in a month that isn't supposed to be used for water clarity. So I want to point those things out to you, and as Ed said, just really urge you to dig in, try to prove me wrong, because I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I am saying I'm very, very careful in what I publish and what I say. And if I am wrong, please tell me. But I think what you're going to find is pretty similar outcomes. Ed mentioned the noise assessment that has been done, and I want to just add a couple of comments to that. It's fallen on part of my job in our team has been to dig in with that with one of my partners, Teresa S. I can't even pronounce your last name. But we've been working on it to be sure that so we're educating ourselves. And we had 3 major concerns. The first was the consultants that were chosen and their credentials. The second was the sources that were used for this resource, or for this assessment. And the third was the scope of the assessment. The consultants are the very same people that are designing the pickleball courts at Alamagnet. They are also in charge of developing early construction, pre-construction plans and specifications and so on and so forth. So you could say they have a secondary interest in making a noise sound okay at Alamagnet. And I think the research that they provided doesn't help me believe that any less. They further didn't note any of their credentials as authors, and we couldn't find any when we looked them up on LinkedIn. So they didn't have any credentials as acoustics scientists or noise experts. As for sources, 5 of the 7 sources that they used were what I would say would be similarly motivated. They were all pickleball. 4 of those were four were pickleball organizations, businesses. It, again, probably behooves them. They're not scientific organizations. These are consumer articles that they quoted in their research for their assessment of Alamagnet's noise in pickleball. They used 1 scientific source. That particular source was a hypothetical study based on estimates. They did no on-site estimates, didn't even try. They didn't quote half of the study, and unfortunately, some of the things that they didn't quote are materially important to the health of Alamagnet. So for some reason, they skipped over a lot of that stuff. It may be the case that they were simply trying to follow their contract, which asked them simply to write what was it? It was key messaging. It wasn't to do a study, it was just messaging for, I presume, people like me. But it didn't work. And that's a little offensive, to be totally honest. It did use MPCA, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, which has absolutely no claim to control for pickleball noises, nor similar noises to pickleball, nor does it extrapolate for pickleball noises or tennis noises or anything. So it's there, but it's a little bit, slim. This study was not representative. As I said, there was no on-site or in situ research. They admitted it was a qualitative study. It was not quantitative, not scientific, unless I guess some people might call it qualitative. Subjective, opinion, scientific, but I would say with no qualitative data included, it's pretty, problematic. It calls the Alamagnet a dog park and baseball park. No mention that it is the #1 favorite natural park for residents of Burnsville, of 23 natural areas. No mention that it is part of just 2% of Dakota County. That is on the, that is a natural community with rare species. I shared that with you last time we were here. No mention that it is a Tier 1 priority natural resource in Burnsville. No mention that it's on an impaired lake. No mention of numerous, it goes on and on and on, forgive me. No mention that it's got 17 protected wetlands on it. No mention that Alamagnet is one of the parks with the most wetlands, and wetlands are critical for species in Burnsville. And no mention that while pickleball, we've been told that pickleball needs to be in the southeast quadrant of Burnsville, no mention that in the southeast quadrant of Burnsville, of the 22 wetlands, 17 are in Alamagnet. Crystal's got 2, Keller's got 3. That's it. So there's a surfeit of wetlands which are so critical to species. No mention of that. It fails to mention, as Ed said, the valley. I literally went into the DNR and I did the little plot, and in fact, not only is the lake and Echo Valley and Echo Park, which is where we live, in a valley, so are the pickleball courts. That makes it even worse, because what you're gonna get is a lot of bouncing back and forth, like a canyon, right, of noise. There was no extrapolation of the fact that there's 8 courts gonna be there, not 1. It uses data on 1 court, not 8. What we learned was that with 8 courts, the pickleball, or the city staff says this will be very busy. It'll be open from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. Even if you just looked at 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., that would be 96,000 pings, or hits rather, or 108,000 pings a day. No mention of the people that enjoy walking through the park and the impact of noise and distraction on people like Max, our neighbor. No mention of the fact that Alamagnet is the park with the most trails, the second most, behind Terrace Oaks, in the city. No consideration of any of that. And there's a bunch more. A lot of noise characteristics that aren't covered. It doesn't look it looks at almost no noise characteristics, except for it says that these pinging noises are interruptive and difficult to handle for people. But it doesn't talk at all about the impact of noise on the wildlife, on the birds, on the animals, or for that matter, on lights on birds and animals. Nothing in the assessment that the city paid for to understand the impact of noise at Alamagnet Park, which is one of 2.6% of Dakota County that is a natural community with rare species. That's not nothing. So, something positive, I think. Speaking of birds, where's my birds here? There's some good news and bad news of birds, but I want to talk about birds because they're a really easy thing for us all to focus on if we're thinking about protecting Alamagnet. There's like so many things that we've shared with you. There's more than we've shared with you, but I'm having fun with the birds these days. What I learned about birds by looking at the city of Burnsville's bird studies, they do them kind of intermittently, so there was 9 between 2001 and 2017. And they're all done 1 or 2 days a year in the springtime if Burnsville does them. I also looked at eBird because the city had recommended that in one of their documents. And the good news is most of the eBird studies, a lot of them, a majority of them are done by the guy that leads bird surveys in Burnsville, city of Burnsville. So that was great. It was reassuring. These aren't just people going, well, I think that looks like a da-da-da, you know. What's amazing is there has been declines in some species of birds, and that's troubling, at Alamagnet specifically. Some of them are breeders, which is even more concerning. Some of them are on various birds of special conservation need. We've got 2 birds up there that are special concern birds at Minnesota, which is a higher quality, more concerning than special, up right next to getting to be threatened or endangered. So we've lost some birds up there, but some species, okay? But we've gained species as well. In fact, we've gained more species up there than we counted earlier. So that's really great, right? The challenge is it may be because it's the only habitat. So that reinforces the importance of Alamagnet. If this is your only place to fly and you're a bird or to breed, then we can't be putting pickleball in there, right? So that's the good news, bad news. There's so much to this. 60 of the birds that we count, I should tell you how many we count here. There's a lot more than you imagine. 164 bird species make Alamagnet home. Now, if you're scientists, you might say, do you mean really their home, or are they flying through? Well, we would say that those kind of both matter. There's some really neat waterfowl at Alamagnet. We've had American white pelicans, which is wild. We have swans, trumpeters, every year now. We have loons every year now. Really cool stuff. And it does matter that they're there, even if they don't nest there. But of these 164 bird species, let's see. I just already said that. 60 of them, did I say, rely on the wetlands. 60 of those birds rely on Alamagnet. They need wetlands as a habitat. They can't survive without wetlands. There's other birds that will survive by wetlands, but these ones specifically need it as habitat. And when we think about birds, let me try to wrap this up, there's just so much. When we think about birds, it's really important that we think about not only the birds and the impacts on them, the lights, of course, as Ed said, the noise, as Ed said. Remarkable to me that the same contractors who did the noise study also did a species study. They didn't even bother to talk about the actual impact of pickleball courts. They only talked in their species report assessment about construction and location. I don't know if it never dawned on them that the concern really, well, construction is a concern. The location is a concern, but only to the extent that it's a pickleball court of 8 courts that is there. So if it was a house, we might have different feelings about it, right? So it's important to look at birds. They're easy to look. And you know what? In some ways, we're seeing some good stuff. The city's doing some good stuff. And many of us, because we do a lot of volunteering up there. But they're really important for the overall ecology. You may know this better. I'm just learning this part. But it makes sense. You know, they're dropping seeds. They are handling rodents for us, or controlling for rodents, or controlling for insects, and so on and so forth, and da-da-da. I'd love to talk more about birds as I'm learning about it, but I just suffice to say that they are, forgive me, are canaries in the coal mine. And pickleball is the last thing you want to put in this coal mine.
Thank you. All right. We will now move on to our next agenda item, which is the review of the 2025 Parks Capital Improvement Plan. And we're going to welcome Garrett Beck, our Parks, Recreation, and Facilities Director, as well as Mark Ray, our Public Works Director, to present. Welcome, guys.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you. We are here tonight, we're gonna tag team the 2025 Parks Capital Improvement Plan. Part of the reason is our Park CIP is kind of split into two different categories. We have our improvement fund, and then we also have our renovations fund. So that is, I'm gonna kind of cover the front part, and then Mark's gonna jump in and carry the other part.
Mr. Beck, if you could hold on for a second, maybe the control room can turn up the volume over the audience.
All right. So there are 4 funding categories in our park CIP. We have our park improvements, we have our information technology in the parks, trail system development, and then the park renovation. In the park improvements, we have general improvements at the $36,000 mark. That is basically to help deal with things that are unforeseen for the most part. Requests from the general public or something comes about where it's a necessity to come in and help assist with an amenity in some way. And then we also have the carry forward from the pickleball project that we are currently reviewing and taking to council for more information on April 15th. Then there's the technology and security. This is really when there's road projects and things going on or major construction in a park, we look for an opportunity to get fiber into our community parks. That's really where our focus is because it's the heaviest use. And then it also assists with putting in technology endpoints. So it could be something as simple if there's a concession stand building, it's point of sale and things like that, or it may be just being able to add Wi-Fi options to users in the parks. It could be security cameras, things like that. We have 3 different studies also that we are currently working on in 2025 and the funding for that. And now I'm going to step aside and let Mark talk about the rest of it.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. So looking from a trail development standpoint, we've allocated $100,000 really for the Lake Marion Trail Gap. This is a Dakota County-led project. And so really, this is only our cost share related professional services if this project continues to move forward with just the development kind of evaluation phase. From a park renovation standpoint, we are looking at playgrounds at 8 different locations, totaling just over $1 million. From a tennis courts, we have 12 tennis courts at 5 locations that are either getting replaced or the surfaces rehabilitated. Basketball courts, again, we have 4 of them. Paved trails, which is really, most of that is just replacement of existing trails that are struggling right now and have lived a good life. And then parking lots, just replacement of some existing pavement. So breaking down those, kind of looking at individual parks, we have Colonial Park. There's the cost breakdown, a nice aerial shot there. In that one, all the trails are scheduled to be replaced. The playground is staying in the same place. And that basketball court is actually just shifting 10 feet due to a drainage issue there. Looking over across Town West, all the paved trails are planned to be replaced. There will be some trees that need to be removed for replacement of the trail because they're heaving the trail. That'll then extend the life of the new trail put in there. The playground will be staying in the same place, and there's a new container and then a pour-in-place surface that will be installed for the playground at Crosstown West. Moving over to Hollows Park, the basketball court will be moving to the north, more just sliding straight north kind of along the trail as you see there. The playground is shifting to the north as well, again along the trail, and then a majority, but not all of the trails will be replaced at Hollows. Moving over to Lac Lavon, the playground is shifting to actually be located between the ball fields, and it's to be protected by fencing. Due to the challenging site, the timeline of this playground is not if sure it'll be this year or next year. The old playground over by the lake will be removed as part of this project. Looking North River Hills, the tennis court is going to stay in the same location based on community feedback. Over at Northview Park, the playground is moving closer to the warming house. The courts will be staying in the same location, and here they're only being resurfaced. Moving on to Oakleaf West Park, everything is basically being reconstructed in exactly the same place as it is today. At Pahasapa, there will be a community meeting actually April 9th to discuss a variety of things. The basketball court is proposed to be replaced in the same location, but with concrete. The parking lot will have a full depth asphalt replacement with some spot curb based on just some poor curb conditions, which are creating bird baths. All trails will be replaced, and then potentially looking at some more trail connections based on the bid prices. And then finally, the new playground will be in the same location and using the same existing concrete container. Moving forward with Terrace Oaks East, the replacement will be in the same location, as well as the container will be unchanged in this location. For Wood Park, the playground is actually getting shifted closer to the parking lot. It will all be new. The existing playground will then be removed as well. So we'll relocate the new playground, and then existing one will be removed. The tennis court will be staying in the same location, but be resurfaced. And then finally, looking at kind of our renovations, this $100,000 is really for removals that we've talked about. So some of those playgrounds, some of those courts that'll be coming out, that is where this money is allocated for, as well as some random concrete slabs we have throughout the park system. And then finally, we do have some small miscellaneous replacements such as benches, playground mulch, picnic tables, and grills. That's what's covered under the general renovations and amenities budget. So with that, try to power through it to respect your time. I know we got more stuff on the agenda. Are there any questions? Easy ones only.
I hope these are easy, because they're more so clarifying questions. I appreciate all the work you've put into this, and because I'm not as saturated in all of these, I just would love to know. I have two questions. The first one being, when you say fiber and parks, what does that mean? What does that entail? Are they underground fiber? Are we talking wiring? I would love to know a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's really just a short term for fiber optic communication lines. So it's basically just high speed networking put in, so we can run data feeds, as Garrett said, to provide either for security or provide public Wi-Fi in the parks, or like point of sale or card access.
Okay, cool. Do you have a question? Okay, and then my second question is, in regards to the pickleball study, you said it was carry forward, so I assume it was appropriated a year before and now is being brought forward. I would love to know like the funding stream and how it's gotten here.
Yeah, the original discussion of a pickleball project started back in 2022. So this has been updating that information along the way and carrying that money forward to try to find the right location for it and to support the project.
Perfect, thank you.
So going back to our fiber question, so are they, is it underground
Yeah,
fiber?
correct. It is
Okay.
underground. Yep, it's bored in.
Okay. I have one more question. So for
You've reached your quota.
So for the parks where there's like basketball courts being moved, I know one of them you said that there's like a drainage issue, but it looks like many of the parks are having things moved. I'm just curious of the reasoning on.
Yeah, excuse me. It's a great question. When it comes to playgrounds later, we'll talk about why the specific playgrounds. But in general, we have a park, we did a park visioning that is still going to be presented to council later this year. And I know you've seen a little bit about it and things like that. But a lot of our parks, the vast majority of them were put in the 1980s and 1990s. Things like ADA and what was of interest back then and how people are using parks now are very different. So this might become a little more clear when we go through the playgrounds and kind of say, hey, this is where it was put in back in the 1980s and 90s, and here's why it would benefit to do that. So and that's why we've had the open houses and talked to the neighborhoods and things like that along the way, because when you move an amenity or whatever, people want to know what's going on. So if I don't answer your question in the next presentation, then hit me up again.
Thank you.
And I noticed the expenses of this, and I was looking earlier today that our city budget relies on a little over $3 million in federal grants. And with what's been going on in the last 90 days or so, do we have any information related to those grants being pulled back? Are we still anticipating those funds are going to be available to allow us to continue these projects?
Yeah, a good question, and yeah, a lot of the federal funding that we have to support city operations and projects are across a variety of things, and staff are watching those and reaching out and trying to find the latest and greatest on those items. Fortunately for us, when it comes to the park projects, we don't have any federal funding associated with these projects, so we don't anticipate there being any challenges with getting these in place and whatnot for 2025.
Thank you.
Yep.
So now I have another question, I'm sorry, but the federal funding brought it up for me. So I understand that it's not going to affect your parks projects, but will it affect natural resource projects that are not a part of the park?
There are no, so from a public works standpoint, we are aware of one project that is not natural resource related that might be impacted by the clawback from our federal funding. But beyond that, there is nothing that'll impact natural resources from a federal funding standpoint. Actually, that wouldn't even impact. So the answer is no, to answer your question, in a roundabout way. So from a public works standpoint, we have one that I'm aware of, but it's not natural resources related.
Thank you.
And then, of course, I have to ask, at Crosstown West, when you're removing the trees, I'm assuming those will be replaced?
Correct.
Okay.
We're getting there. I'm not sure, I'm not sure the extent on the number offhand of the trees, but correct, it's trees directly close to it, and then we'd plant them where they're not going to impact the trail in the future.
Perfect.
Would you apply pulling out trees that are affected by emerald ash borer as well, same time, or no?
Right, so the question is, are we going to cut down any ash trees at the same time we're doing this park project?
Correct, is that part of this?
No, so any removals associated with the trail would be part of the trail operation. Our forestry team has their hands more than full right now with EAB elsewhere in the city.
I bet.
Any other questions about this? Well, thank you for that informative and very fast presentation. And now we'll move on to our fifth agenda item, the review of the 2025 playground replacement projects. We'll welcome Garrett Beck to speak again.
All right, well, good evening again, commissioners. It's me. Jess is going to join me here shortly. I've had the privilege of working with her and a team of people on our playground projects, both helping to figure out all the things that go into getting to where we are today, but also through the engagement with the community and whatnot. So it's fun to be able to present this evening and to have our Girl Scout troop that helped us, and we'll be inviting them up here in a little bit to kind of share about their experience in a few slides here. So in 2024, we completed a parks plan. You all had an opportunity to have that plan presented to you. It's online. People can view it at any time. But we inventoried over 5,000 park assets during that process, and everything was given a rating from 1 to 5. If it was a 1, it needed to be replaced kind of as soon as possible if it was still a relevant amenity. And if it was a 2, then you really wanted to be planning to have a replacement in the next 1 to 3 years, depending on what the amenity was and what the condition was. So from that, we had more things that needed to be replaced than we have money to do and/or staff time to do, but we were able to prioritize 8 of our playgrounds for this year, and then we have an ongoing plan to replace the other ones that are in that 1 and 2 over the next several years as well. So as part of the process, when you're doing playground replacements, you do a request for a proposal. We sent that out in December so that if and when the budget was approved for 2025, we were ready to start moving forward. construction time in Minnesota is not that long, so the sooner we can get up and running and do these presentations and get approval, the quicker we can start to order things and get them set on someone's schedule to do the installs. So we were able to receive 45 proposals for all 8 of the different park projects, and that came from 7 different vendors that serve the Minnesota area that we are in. So we basically just reached out to all of them, send them the RFP, and invite them to participate, and that was our response this year. From an engagement standpoint, we sent out postcards to anyone that lived within a quarter mile of the park to make sure that they are aware of it. We also have a playground website specifically for these projects and invited people to go online, follow along with where we were in the process of getting proposals. They had opportunities to vote on things and share their thoughts and whatnot. And then the other really great piece that we were able to do was do the open house with our Girl Scout troop here in this particular room. And so we hosted that. And I'm going to invite the folks who are going to speak on that to come up and talk about their experience. Okay.
Hello everyone, we are Girl Scout Troop 17660, and today we want to share our experience and involvement with Playground Replacement Project in our community. As part of this project, we had the opportunity to engage with our community at the Playground Replacement Open House, which took place on Wednesday, February 19th. It was such a fun and meaningful event.
Our first task was to greet everyone as they arrived. We wanted to make sure everyone felt welcomed and excited about sharing their ideas and input for the new playgrounds. We then passed out voting stickers to the attendances. This was more important because everyone had a chance to vote on their favorite playground designs.
We also took attendance, making sure we knew how many community members participated. It was great to see so many families involved. There were a total of 65 people who attended the open house. At the end of the open house, we participated in the voting process ourselves. It was amazing to see the community come together and express their opinions on what the new playground should look like.
Overall, this project taught us the importance of community involvement. We're proud to have been part of this process and can't wait to see the new playground come to life. Thank you for listening. We encourage everyone to get involved in future community projects. Together we can make a difference.
Great job, girls, and thank you for being so patient.
Thank you so much. That was really adorable. And I loved it. I just see my future daughter is there, so sorry for being emotional because that was really cute. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of the parks that we're going to be replacing the playgrounds at, and whether they're being moved or not, what the budget is, and then who we chose as the preferred vendors for each one of these parks. So there's 8 of them. And here we go. So the first one would be Hollows Park. There is a $125,000 budget for this. This is going to be moved to a new location, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. The preferred vendor that we chose for this was Weber Recreational Designs, and they're actually going to be doing 3 of our playgrounds. So this is the same picture that Mark used earlier in the presentation. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's 2 X marks there. The blue X is the new location, the white X is the old location. So as you can see, the white X is pretty far south down in the park, away from the parking lots, and it was just kind of in a location that was easy to vandalize and not easy to access. So we're moving it to that blue X, which is closer to the path and closer to the baseball fields. People should be able to kind of keep an eye on their kids that are playing ball, and also an eye on their kids that are on the playgrounds, and when we move it to Hollows, move it into that location in Hollows. Northview also has a $125,000 budget. It also is going to be moved to a new location, and it is the second of three that we chose Weber Recreational Designs as the a provider. This is the design that they gave to us and people voted on. Here's a map of Northview. So currently, on the north side of this picture, you can see the white X. There's not a path next to that playground at all, and so people can't access it on a paved trail at all. So there's accessibility challenges. It's going to be moved much closer to the path right there on the south side of the park that you can see next to the blue X in the path. Wood Park, also a $125,000 budget, also being moved to a new location. Also chose the preferred designer would be Weber Recreational Designs. And here's the map of Wood. Right now, it is further into the park that you kind of have to walk a long distance to get to it, so there's accessibility challenges, vandalism challenges as well. It's going to be moved closer, much closer to the parking lot, and also closer to the tennis courts and the ball field that's there, so people will be able to access it easier. This next design is from Colonial. This is a $125,000 budget. It's going to remain in the current location that we have right now. Northland Recreation is the provider that we chose for Colonial. Loch Levon is a unique one, as Mark talked about. The budget for this was $75,000. We're going to be adding some fencing to it to protect from fly balls or home runs or other things like that. So it's a $99,000 budget. It's going to be moved to a new location, and Northland Recreation is also the provider that's going to be doing this. And here, the current playground is up next to the lake. As you can see on the north side of the picture, there's a white X, and it doesn't look it in the picture, but it's actually really close to the water. It's not near the ball fields, and so it's not very used. You'll see in between the fields there for Loch Levon is the blue X, and so that kind of longer playground that you saw is going to be up against the fence on one of those fields, and then it's going to have a fence around it to protect from balls that are coming from the ball fields. The idea here being that parents who have kids who are playing ball can be kind of eye on the kids playing ball, but also having an eye on the kids who are on the playgrounds as well. Pahasapa is a $125,000 budget. It's also going to remain in that same location that it is currently, just right next to the warming house, the rinks, and the parking lot. Northland Recreation is who we chose for that as well. They're doing 4 of our playgrounds. And then Terrace Oaks East, also going to remain in the same spot. It's $125,000, and it's Northland Recreation who's doing this as well. I wanted to specifically with this point out, as you've seen in the other pictures, there's been a variety of color schemes in all the different playground designs. This is just from the design that they proposed to us, but with each one of the designers, they have, 20 different color schemes that you can choose from. And so for each one of the designers, we have chosen an earth tone type of color, which is very similar to the colors that you see in this photo. So even if you've seen like turquoise or pink or whatever, in other ones, those will not be a part, but these colors will be more kind of natural looking colors that we use in each one of the parks. And then finally, Crosstown West. Again, no lime green slides, but this is, it will remain in the same location. I couldn't quite fit the photo in just one, so I did 2 there so you can see that it, yes, will have swings as well as a big playground structure. It's going to be in the same location. We chose Minnesota-Wisconsin Playground for this design. And they're going to be doing a different surfacing called Port in Place, which is kind of like a rubbery type of surfacing, which costs a lot more money. So that's why the budget is a little bit higher here for Crosstown West specifically. And that's all I have. So if you guys have any questions, both Garrett or I will answer them.
Why was Crosstown West picked to have that particular surface and none of the other ones?
So one of our goals is when we're doing community parks, whenever possible, to try to get some amount of port in place. Crosstown West is a community park. If you look at that location, it is kind of in the heart of the city. It's heavily populated right around there, and there are not a lot of parks that you can get to in any one direction to get to that. So right now we have Red Oak Park, which has our fully inclusive playground at it. We were able to do Alamagnet last year with a port in place surface. in that community park, and we're doing Crosstown West this year. A lot of times in order to pull this off, we've relied on help from some of our community partners like the Burnsville Savage Lions Club, where they come beside us and help to support that cost. In general, it costs about twice as much to do a port-in-place playground as it does to do a regular playground. So it's the ideal thing to do, and it's just extremely expensive to do also.
How were all the playground pictures, like the designs themselves, is that exactly what's going into each individual park?
The pictures that you saw will be the designs that do go into the parks, yes.
How were those specific, because they're all very different. How were those chosen for each location? Was there a specific factor? Were there community factors?
Yep, so whenever we put out the RFPs, one of the things we said in the RFP was there's going to be 5 different factors to help us choose which playground designs we're going to choose. So that's one, a variety of play equipment, including spinners and slides and swings. Also, what type of warranty do you have? What type of materials are you going to use? How can you incorporate it with the surrounding area? What's the cost going to be? One of those things we also said was going to be community engagement. So when we took community engagement, you know, the design itself, the materials they use, the design itself, how much it met those requirements we had, and then also feedback from park staff and from recreation staff. We kind of put all those things together in a beautiful spreadsheet, and then and then it kind of said, this is the best one that you have based on those things. It was kind of interesting to me. The Girl Scouts probably would have been able to say something about this as well. In our engagement sessions, both online and at the open house community session, it was very obvious that there was 1, maybe 2 designs from each one of the parks that really rose above the rest when it came to community engagement. And so I think 7 out of the 8 playgrounds were the ones that the community had said this is our absolute favorite, and the one that wasn't the absolute favorite was only maybe 2 or 3 votes behind, but we chose it, you know, for other reasons like our design, our parks maintenance feedback. So, yep, good question though.
Couple other questions.
Sure.
With the playgrounds that you're moving,
Yes.
what's happening to the site where the old playground was? Is it just being filled with dirt?
It'll be restored to look like there was nothing ever there.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Last question, the Lac Lavon playground. It's in between baseball fields.
Yes.
I understand the side fence.
Yes.
What about any overhead protection?
Yes, so that's a great question. So originally what they had proposed was like a batting cage netting, which is 3 sides, right? And then you have the ground. So it's essentially like a cube that's, if you think about a 6-sided long rectangular cube, just with 1 opening on one side. So that's essentially what we're gonna do, but instead of netting, it's gonna be actual fence, like chain link fence.
Okay.
And the reason for that being in fence instead of netting is it's less long-term maintenance, both costs and work for the parks maintenance staff. So the only opening will be that one side where you can get in and out.
Gotcha.
Yep.
For Lac Lavon, with that, the fencing that's gonna be used, especially over the top, is there going to be some sort of a coating on that to prevent that loud bong sound that could, when it hit fence or something like that? Is there anything, considerations being taken into account for that kind of thing? I'm just thinking about kids playing and suddenly noise and.
I would say there's not, and this is also in a location where it's down the line, so it's not gonna be getting pelted by overthrows.
Yeah, I think
and-
foul ball is
and-
probably all.
Yeah,
I
so there may be
consider.
occasional foul balls that hit it for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And that noise isn't really all that loud, but.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, I know like chain link fence, when you hit it and stuff like that, you get that reverberation and stuff, but.
I would assume you'll put it on the side with it's down the left field line versus down the right field line, because I would assume you're more likely to have foul balls hit off to the right than you are hitting foul balls on.
Well, yeah, is it on the one side, which side of the path is it gonna go on, or is it going over the whole path? I know Lac Lavon.
Yeah,
You're gonna get in between.
The best space for this particular playground was to go Wow, it's been a while since I,
I wasn't expecting that question, sorry.
I mean, I see the
It
X
is-
over the path, so that's why I was like, well.
My bad. That was my fault for doing it.
It-
It's on the south
To answer
side.
your question specifically, though, it's going to be it's on the left field side,
Perfect.
heading out the
Okay.
fields E and F. So,
Excellent.
yep.
And I did have another question. What do we do with the old equipment?
Yeah, it's a great question. So part of the RFP is that the company that is doing the removal is 100% responsible for it. We do have one group that has reached out and is interested in trying to work with that particular vendor of a park that they like the playground the best to try to see if they can take possession of that equipment. So, we encourage them to look at opportunities to donate it, and, in the past, some of our playgrounds have gone to third world countries and different things like that, so. But our RFPs it's basically they become 100%, it's a turnkey thing. They take it, they're responsible for it.
I know the equipment at Wood Pond. I go there with my granddaughter a lot, and the slides and all of that stuff is in fabulous condition. I mean, it's in terrific condition, and the idea of that being just thrown away, it just seems like a terrible waste of a very, good piece of equipment. So I hope that can happen.
Yeah, with playgrounds, they kind of have a 20-year life expectancy to them, and oftentimes the equipment will last, but as it gets damaged and starts to fall apart, the replacement parts and things change and whatnot, it just becomes really hard to, we had one playground that was out of commission for I want to say 6 weeks because there just weren't parts readily available to do it, and so you're now putting up yellow tape and securing things, and it just becomes an eyesore, and that's really why you want to try to get them replaced before they get to that point. So, to the average person walking by, yes, they should still look good and safe, so your kid can go on it, but, yeah.
Thank you.
I have one question. So I appreciated your presentation, thank you. But going back to where we are putting in paved trails, has there been a consideration of putting in water permeable, I know it's more expensive, but brick or stone or, something like that so that there's less runoff?
For these projects, there is nothing like that as part of these projects. So trails tend to be those things that we replace with asphalt, essentially. They are more durable and they hold up better. So to answer your question, sorry, is no.
That prompted one with me, and then I was thinking, rain gardens. I've been seeing them pop up a lot in my neighborhood, and I just think, as we're thinking about runoff, I don't know. I know that these plans are set, or maybe they're not, but just as an idea. The other thought that I had, because we're Parks and Natural Resources, I've been noticing, there is a trend, and I understand from an accessibility standpoint that these parks are moving, and I'm noticing away from lakes, closer to parking, closer to other amenities. Wondering if there was any sort of environmental impact reasoning behind it, or was it solely for an accessibility standpoint?
On the parks that we showed this evening, the single biggest factor is that accessibility piece. That is, anytime accessibility is a challenge, we look at what can we do with it. We engage the neighborhood. I think Mark talked earlier that, we had an open house out at North River Hills to discuss the tennis courts because they're up on top of a hill with a 17% grade. And the neighborhood and the people that voted on it said they are fine with it being there, and we're not relocating those at this time because of their preference, right? But that anytime we're replacing an amenity in our park system, we want to take a hard look at the accessibility standpoint. And then, we want to avoid choosing a location where it may be doing something negative, right? And so, we feel pretty good about these locations and that adjustment from an accessibility standpoint.
Thank you. I was just curious, like what went into all those decisions? And then my last question is, are the colors set? You said that they had a whole rainbow, and wondering if we could request our favorite colors.
You could request your favorite colors, and many people did, in fact, request all sorts of colors. But really just to keep with the themes that we already have, we decided to go with those earth tones. They're less charging. I actually was just recently driving somewhere, and I saw a playground in another city that shall not be named that did have some very bright colors, and it just stood out so much that I was like, interesting choice. So I think it's good that we're staying with those earth tones.
It was some of the questions that we had on the online survey and stuff,
Yeah.
though. We did want people to share what they thought. If there was an overwhelming, like, these are the colors that we wanted, then that was factored into it.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, I do have one other question, and this goes back to the fact that my wife is part of the Master Gardeners. These areas that are where things are being taken out and things are being moved, could we do a consideration of just putting natural, instead of having, thank you. Instead of having that another, or a section that's being mowed, let's just turn it into natural prairie grasses and flowers and.
Mark referenced the frameworks dollars. That really started 6-7 years ago, where myself and park staff went through all of our park system and tried to look at how do we reduce the amount of mowing. There's the environmental benefits associated with that. There's less maintenance time and cost. Like, it's just, it makes a lot of sense, right? So that's stuff that happens on a regular basis. In some places, we've implemented that, and I forget what the number is. I think it's online on the number of acres that we have just turned into natural areas. There are people that cheer that, and there's people that tell us how much they don't like it. There's a park that we just did in Interlochen, where people were not happy with that. In fact, we actually have one over at Terrace Oaks East, which, Terrace Oaks is a very popular natural area, and we let some of the grasses go natural and tried to change that over, and we had such overwhelming response from the neighborhoods that we ended up going back to mowing it and whatnot too. So it really, yes, the answer is we will consider all of that. This is for the responsibility of the contractor. It's put in dirt, natural grasses, and then it's up to us on figuring out what we do with it in the future. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes.
And your work and your time. We move on to our final miscellaneous. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 6, 2025, and I promise I will not take it over from you, Sir Chair. And remember, those reapplying to serve on PNRC, the deadline is May 5th, 2025. And for those of you out there, if you're interested, May 5th, 2025. With that, anything from staff before we adjourn?
No additions from staff.
All right. At this time, I would like to request a call for the adjournment of the April 7th, 2025 Parks and Natural Resources Commission meeting.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second. You have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And we adjourn the meeting for this evening. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Hopefully we have warmer weather soon.